Here they go. Oh, that didn't work. Sorry,
we need more people up here.
So we're just down here at GL Veneer looking at your slab. So here it is. This is going to be the end that gets cut off, right? We'll make our cut probably around here. So that's your off-cut material. And then this is going to be for the main portion of the dining table. So nice big width. There's some really good curly grain in there. You can kind of see at the moment as well.
Yeah, you can see corner to corner.
Oh, it does.
And we flattened a bunch of these, so I know them intimately.
Yeah.
So I mean, they don't, the underside does want to be a little bit hit and miss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to oversell it.
It's a bit of one.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, it actually is. And we're not rivering it. Like, you'd want to at least probably cut off a foot here to try and save some of that.
Get that down there in that corner. It's the two opposite corners.
It depends on how much you're trimming.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, that might work.
Oh, it should, Dylan. You get rid of the worst of that.
And we can even come to about here if we had to.
Yeah.
Normally, we do our best to try not to work with slabs that are this warped. However, our client saw this specific piece of wood and he absolutely fell in love. And it worked out that we were down in Los Angeles to take a look and get eyes on this piece in person before we had it shipped up to us. And even seeing it in person, we still didn't really know if it was going to work, but I sent a video to the client and he insisted he wanted this piece of wood and he believed in our creativity to make this work. So that's what we did. We purchased the piece from Daniel down at GL Veneer. We had it shipped back up to our shop, and now begins the challenge of trying to maintain a maximum thickness out of this super warped and cupped slab. So it had a few different kinds of warping going on across the piece. It was quite cupped substantially across the width, so we opted to cut that end off the slab since the client doesn't need the full length for his table. It also has a big twist going down the entire length, so that's not really something that we can just cut out by picking one end of the slab. We have to try and take an equal amount off both ends and then get it onto our CNC machine and see how it's going to sit. This is always kind of our first real look at how warped the piece is because it's sitting on a perfectly flat surface. So what we have to end up doing for this piece is we got the top side essentially completely flat, and then we did pretty much nothing to the underside of the slab. So you're going to see later on in the video, we're just going to have to manually sand off all those saw marks as opposed to flattening them off with our CNC machine.
Let's flip it, and I want to touch up the bottom first before I do anything, and then take a look at it.
What do you mean touch up the bottom like this?
I'm going to take the Rotex to it, just completely sand it.
Try the angle grinder first. Depending on how rough it is, that smooths it out, and then the Rotex will make super easy work of that.
So you can see here on the bottom side of the slab, the CNC machine really didn't hit much at all. It hit a couple of those corners, and then we opted to use the Rotex to take off all the other saw marks. Normally you see us using a Mirka sander, which we actually prefer for finished sanding. However, the Rotex does a way better job at hogging out material, so that's why we used it on the underside of the slab. If this were a big resin pour table, normally we'd be wire wheeling all of that off. We wouldn't necessarily be sanding it smooth. And then we would just pour resin to fill on the underside. And then it's after the pour we would machine more of that off. But that's essentially what would give us the flat bottom. Since we're not pouring resin on this table in a full casting situation, we're just going to be filling the voids. We're not going to be able to use resin to cheat and make the bottom of the table flat. Now, while this client didn't want a big resin river or a resin cast, he did want the voids filled in with resin. Although these aren't as large of voids compared to doing the whole center strip down the middle of the table, we're still opting for our Black Forest deep resin. And the reason for that is it's going to give a much better bond than using a quicker curing resin like our Coat Thin or Coat Thick. By using the deep resin, it's going to remain liquid for a much longer amount of time and really soak in deep to the edges of the wood, and that's going to help those cracks and voids stay together over time. We've been doing these tables for literally decades, and we have found that if we use a quicker curing resin to try and repair a crack, it doesn't really give the structure that you're after. The only way to repair a crack with resin and have it stay together is using some kind of deep casting resin. Once we've got that excess resin flattened off the top, Jack is just going to do a chalk line down the middle of this table so that we can square off that and cut this piece down to its final size. Once we've got the tape peeled off the bottom, we're just taking a power planer to the underside of the table to really help us clean off some more of those marks that we hadn't quite got. And again, this is very unconventional for us. We always like to have these perfectly flat and parallel faces on our tables, but that just wasn't an option on this piece. Now we can begin with some of the live edge prep. So we like to take a draw knife to initially clean it off, and then we'll use a wire wheel to get that nice smooth texture. Now, here's where we have to put those angled or wedged pockets into the underside of the table. This slab is thicker in some spots than the others because we haven't flattened the underside, and that's going to result in the pockets being way deeper on one side than the other side, but this is what's going to allow us to have this space sit perfectly flat.
Sergey, film me singing this. Oh, it's what you do to me. Oh, what you do to me.
So once we've got our corners all chiseled square, as you probably guessed it, there is more sanding on this table. And it also revealed some bug holes, as you can see here on the underside. So normally we don't worry about filling in every single crack and void on the underside of a table. But with these bug holes, they were going to be right on the lip that's closest to the people dining at it. So we didn't want people to be running their fingers underneath and feel a big void or rough spot. So that's why we opted to fill those pieces there. Now we're going to install some C-channels on the underside of this piece to prevent any potential warping in the future. Don't typically put these inner pieces, and that's because we incorporate resin. On our big resin tables, they may be 4, 5, or 6 feet wide, but the individual pieces of wood typically don't span over 3 feet on their own, and pieces like that don't have that high of a chance of warpage. However, this tabletop is over 5 feet wide in some of its widest points, and we're not having any resin to break up that width, so we need to have the C-channels in there to help hold this thing perfectly flat. Once we've got the piece filled and sanded, we're going to put a 2mm 45-degree bevel on the ends of the table, but we're not going to do it along the live edge, obviously. For that, we're just going to do a nice little round over, just so it's soft for people who are leaning up against that natural edge. And as a final detail, we always like to put a small recess in the underside of the table for our solid pewter branding. And finally, we can begin the finishing process on this piece to expose the beautiful grain in this slab of Clara walnut. So not only did this slab have the size that our client was looking for, but it had that super rich marbled grain that you don't always see. Obviously, all Clara walnut is beautiful, but this was an especially spectacular example of it. It had figure going down the entire slab and just beautiful color going throughout. And we're finishing this using our Black Forest UV Cure oil. So this is now out and available for purchase. We're also selling the curing lights for this product, and it's a product that we've developed with Osmo. So it's a co-branded product that we're releasing with them, and it's going to be exclusively sold through us, and it has completely transformed our finishing process. In the past, we would have to wait 24 hours in between coats and then 7 days of curing before we could come along and apply our ceramic coating. But with this UV finishing product, we're able to instantly cure it with exposure to the light and then move on to the next coat. And then when we're finished our last coat, you can instantly put the ceramic coating on. So we've been able to take a 1 to 2 week process and shorten it down to about 3 to 4 hours. And the process on the bottom is the exact same as the top. And again, really nice here because we can instantly cure and flip this slab instead of having to wait around and allow everything to dry before we can flip it. Once we've got the underside completely finished, we can now go ahead and begin installing the threaded inserts for the C-channels. We like to use threaded inserts for all of our connections on our furniture because it allows for the ease of taking them apart and putting them back together without the chance of stripping out any holes on your piece. Now, as you probably guessed, all those pockets were for a base, so we're going to begin constructing this cantilever base. Now, this is different than our usual X base, but we have done it a couple times before on our channel. Our client has opted to go with a black and ash finish, so the material is the exact same as you typically see us use on one of our X bases, but this is going to require, I think, nearly triple the amount of wood that we typically use on a table base, just because of the overall design. So this is, again, kind of a centrally mounted base, but we're going for a cantilever effect. Technically, we've had comments before that it's not a true cantilever because we are going to use a steel support on this base. but you guys can let us know what you think of the overall design. So the first step, once we've got our pieces all S4S and machined on our planer and jointer, is to take them over to the CNC machine to begin cutting the joinery and cutting some of these pieces down to size. All of the components on this base are oversized, and we can't actually get any lumber that's going to be able to get them out of a single piece. So the solution for that is big stack laminations. So the long piece here is going to be the beam that passes through this shorter piece in our cantilever, and like I mentioned, all of it is glued together pieces of ash to get our total thickness that we need. And we're just using dominoes for alignment on these pieces because it's going to allow for the glue up to go much, much smoother. We're going to get plenty of strength out of just the gluing faces. The dominoes are simply just to make our lives easier during this glue up process. And we're going to repeat the exact same process over again here on these smaller pieces, but I will mention the adhesive that we're using. Again, it's Titebond 3, as you always see us use, and we're not sponsored by Titebond, believe it or not, but we do sell their products, so if you want to go over to our website and pick up some of this glue, we would really, really appreciate that. We like Titebond 3 because it's waterproof and weatherproof, so it works really, really well on our exterior doors. This table, it's an interior application, so it's a little bit of overkill, but we like overkill. It lets us sleep at night. Now you're going to begin to see how these two components come together. So our large beam that we did our stack lamination on is going to slide into this shorter support, and then we're going to add a filler block onto the top of this to give the illusion that we've just slid this right through the middle and it's in there with some magic joinery. But in reality, we're just fixing it in with a bunch of screws, and we're screwing and gluing that filler block, and then we're going to finish sand and stain over all of this to give that appearance of this giant beam that's just been slid through and is kind of fixed in place with gravity. Once we've let all that glue dry, we can get the piece sanded up, and then we're applying the black stain that I mentioned earlier. So this blackened ash is probably by far one of our most popular finish options for our bases, and the ash is by far the most popular species. The nice thing that we like about this is although it does turn it black, you're not losing any of the grain. So we're still able to see all of that structure and the character of the wood, but our clients get that nice consistent color that they're after. To achieve this, we like to use the General Finishes black wood stain. It works very, very well. Again, not sponsored, but we do sell this product. And I guess this is a little bit of a chance to give ourselves a shout out and let you guys know a bit more about our business. So we do manufacture and create all these custom pieces of furniture, but we've also had a retail store since the beginning of our business. So we sell wood, we sell finishes, we sell tools, machinery, just about anything that a woodworker could need. And our store is located in Calgary, but we serve worldwide for some of our products, but primarily North America. Even our lumber, you can go onto our website, you can check out our slabs, you can check out all of our pre-cut pieces of wood, and we just appreciate all the business that we get everywhere. So if you guys want to go check that out and get some of the products that you see us using in this video for yourself, you can head on over to our website and do that. Once the stain has been applied, we're then using the UV cure oil over this piece, and that's another feature that I also really like about this product, is that it works well over other products. You don't have to just use the UV cure oil. So we were able to go and put that General Finishes black wood stain on there, let it cure, and then go right over top with a UV finish. And here is the metal detail that I mentioned earlier in the video. So we have one dowel that's actually going to get used as support for one of the top braces on the cantilever base, but then we're going to have some decorative elements of aluminum also going throughout the base. And if you were wondering why we had all these grooves in our pieces, now you're going to begin to understand why. We're using PL400 as an adhesive to secure all of them into place, and then once we've pushed them in, we just simply hold them in with some masking tape, and the PL400 is so incredibly strong that these are never going to come out. And finally, we can add in that top support where we're going to mount the steel plates that we cut recesses for earlier in the underside of the table. So our steel plates just get screwed into the top side of the base. The reason for the wood screws here is because this part of the table is never going to have to come apart. But then you can see our slotted holes in the rest of the base. That's where our threaded inserts go up. And the reasoning for the slotted holes is so that we can allow that tabletop to expand and contract. And now we can begin getting this piece loaded up into the truck because we're going to be driving this out to our client on Salt Spring Island and personally deliver this table to him. So we can just come straight in with it.
Yeah.
That's the nicest thing ever.
Probably set the base
Just walk
down.
right in.
So going this way?
This way, yeah. So
Yeah.
notionally speaking, if it, we'll see how, because of the width, if it lines up like centered under here, because we
Yeah.
have a big light fixture coming down.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll move some more of these chairs out of the way.
All right, are we getting ready here, guys? Let's keep some control on this. Okay. And we're pads that it's gonna rest on. Yes, we feel better.
Put my shoes off. Please find a window.
Back to the window. You guys bring to the
Window, okay.
There we go.
Because yeah, this is
Is this the hardest part?
That was.
this is notionally the center.
Okay.
All right, down the elbows.
The more you got on the end, the better now.
John and I will be fine on this side.
So swing around the end somehow.
No, it's
Yeah, look at, a little bit.
this. That's impressive.
Smart. Do we want dunnage?
The thin end on this end?
Cool. We'll see when it gets undone. We'll figure it out.
I think it might be switched.
Okay.
We just,
That's
it's
fine.
whichever way was easier to carry it in.
Yeah.
You want me to help or is it too risky?
They probably get the wood when it's dying, right?
Yeah. Most of the wood we get from GL Veneer is all, yeah, dead trees in California. They replant it all and
Yeah,
slice it
yeah.
up.
So it would have been very old,
Oh yeah.
old tree to be that size.
Yeah, 'cause this one's a big Claro tree. It would have been, I would think at least 150.
I'm glad we didn't go for a bigger slab. I think it's the right size. Rain, this is moved to the sea. An inch. Okay, to Lorraine. Okay, slow her down. Let's see here. Oh, hang on. You guys, that's backwards. Your slots are not lining up. I ain't kidding you, John.
Test run.
These ones are lining up and that one's out 6 inches. You need to rotate. Okay, down on your end, Alistair. Okay, I think we're in there. Yeah, down everywhere. We're in.
That's it.
Yeah, it's in. It'll slide a bit. Okay, so do you want the table rotated though? Or do you want it there?
base right there, right?
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying.
There's a wide end and narrow end to the table too, so you have to decide that. But anyways,
And that way,
I think I got one, might be a struggle. I can shimmy it a little bit.
You need to go that way a bit more, eh?
Pardon me?
You need to go that way more.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, I do.
You can tell because the small table had.
Yeah, I separated my shoulder in high school, and now anytime I do the circle motion, it's like click, 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 click.
It's a big room, so you need something this big. Yeah, exactly.
just my honest opinion, our high back chair that we do would have looked beautiful here.
You know what, I actually.
Sculpted seats.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, they would have, this time would have worked really nice, yeah.
But the extra 30 or 40K at this point, I had to push
Oh,
back.
Alistair, it's always the same.
Next year.
Alistair did end up commissioning some chairs. Now he's starting with 2. We'll have to convince him for the other 6 that he needs. But he ended up going with the exact chair that my dad suggested, our high back Maloof chair. So let me give you a little bit of a better look at this.
Maybe we'll two for the end.
Well, Lorraine and I are both gonna sit at either end. And just really yell back and forth.
Slide the salt down.
Yeah. Anyway, so you guys want to walk with beers or do you want to eat? Like, tell me what you want to do. Because
I'm gonna walk with beer.
Yeah, let's walk.
Walk with
Yeah,
beers. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll wait for everyone to
And
walk.
there's some non-alcoholic in here too.
Okay, no, I'm okay.
Yeah. Get it cleaned up, get all the bark off, and then.
Put glass on it or what?
Oh yeah, just put glass on it or something.
Here they go, here they go. Oh, that didn't work, sorry, my
We need
bad.
more people up here. Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I'm good.
So yeah, so the idea is to maybe have the base like here, and then get all the bark and stuff off.
Yeah.
And then just have it as a console piece or something. I got to do something with it. 'Cause
I like
it's
it.
too-
We're done. The delivery went well. We got fed, most importantly. Our clients made us an amazing dinner, so huge thank you to them. And we got the special treat of getting to have a meal on one of our Black Forest tables. I don't know, it's a pretty special feeling because we get to build these tables all the time, but it's very rare that we actually get to use them for their purpose. And we were all joking, we're probably quite insufferable for anyone who doesn't appreciate wood because the whole time we're sitting around this table, we're like, oh, look at this knot. That means that this branch grew that way and it was cut off at some point. But for us, it was a big, big treat. And again, I just have to say thank you to our clients for hosting us. We're gonna get to spend the night here. We've got the beautiful ocean view out behind us, and we could not be happier. Our team on this table absolutely knocked it out of the park. This thing is essentially a perfect table. Couldn't have went to better people. So thank you to all of you who watched this video, and we will catch you guys next time.